Anderson Powerpole connectors, why they are a good idea, by Paul, Mike 0 Whiskey November Uniform, or 26 Charlie Tango 730 if you catch me on 11 metres and PMR 446.
Hello, welcome to the channel again. It's Paul, Mike 0 Whiskey November Uniform, or 26 Charlie Tango 730 if you catch me on 11 metres and PMR 446. Now I'd like to talk to you about something that's quite important really. The power connections to your radio and getting them right. So I've got a radio plugged in here. I'm just going to find where the lead has gone because I just need to disconnect it momentarily. There we go. And show you these. I'll just bring them close to the camera. I'm not sure it'll focus. These are Anderson Powerpole connectors. You can buy these from quite a few amateur radio suppliers, though I see no reason why these can't be connected to CB radio as well, for the same reason. Now I'll bring on to why this is. In 2018, about the end of June 2018, I participated in something on the 11 metre band called Activate All Counties, which coincided with something else that a certain infamous Del Boy also arranged, although having said that, the Activate All Counties was much more popular than his big multi-mode net. So there we go. I chose to participate in the Activate All Counties because it had the most prominence. And what happened was, I took my President Grant 2, which at the moment is actually down in the car again, so I put it back in the car for now. What happened with that was it had basically unterminated wires on the connector, and I'd made a mistake in connecting it up. I thought I'd connected the red to the positive terminal of the battery I was using, which was actually a car jump starter, which I still have to this day, and obviously it turned out it was the negative, and I'd somehow managed to connect the positive and negative backwards. When I turned on the power, obviously the radio didn't power up, and I thought at that point I'd killed the radio. And as the President Grant 2, when it was out, was quite expensive, around about £200. The premium variant of it that was released later on was a little bit more expensive, so I'm kind of glad it wasn't the premium variant. This was just a regular President Grant 2, which was limited to 4 watts AM FM and 12 watts peak envelope power single sideband. So I had to use a reserve radio, which fortunately worked fine, and I didn't wire it backwards because otherwise I would have had no radio at all, and that would have been a bit bad because I only had 2 radios with me. So in the end I decided to get some of these. Now these didn't come into play until I went to the Blackpool rally last year. I bought a pack of the Anderson Powerpole connectors, the shells and the metal terminals from SOTABeams, along with their Fuser 6, which also uses the Anderson Powerpole connectors as a means to try and slowly transition to that type of connector. Now I'll bring up another power cable I've got here. This one is the power cable for the Midland that was featured in my last video. Now that has no polarity protection on the cable, though I'm just hoping the radio has a diode in it like the Grant 2 did, because it was actually a diode that saved it. All that did was blow the fuse, and all I had to do was replace the fuse, and the Grant 2 started working, and I did some tests and it was all working fine. So this one's connected to the TTI TCB 550. I changed it over in the interim between the last 2 videos. Obviously this radio will not make a noise. I'll just bring it up because there's no speaker in it. I'll just bring it up. So that's the TTI TCB 550. Very small compact CB radio, ideal for my proposal that I'm outlining in my last video, which if you haven't seen it yet, please do watch that if you're in the UK, because I do want as many people who understand the concepts to try and back me on this, because let's face it, it would be good to have. So I'll put a link to that video in this one as well. So down here on the floor I've got a computer power supply, quite hefty. What I've done to it if I can find the wiring, is modified one of the connectors on it with Anderson Powerpole connectors. Now this was powering the Team Roadcom FS that was being used by my wife while she was here. That radio is actually still in the bedroom on the bedside cabinet. So with these connectors, I'll just bring the power supply back up. You can't plug them in backwards. So if I bring that up, this is going to be a bit fumbly because I think this supply is still live. Yes, it is. I'll disconnect from the power for a minute, so I'll be able for me to bring it up. That beep was just the power supply tester that actually keeps it live. So with these connectors, you can't plug them in backwards, it just can't be done. So if I tried connecting, I'll bring it up, if I tried connecting that like that, yeah, that's just not going to work. But if I do this, a bit fumbly because I'm looking at it at a funny angle, these should click together. There we go. Yep. So they're now connected. That means you can't reverse the polarity as long as those are fitted to the cable and they're fitted properly. So if I just put that microphone down a minute, I'm just going to go down to there just to grab the power cable just to plug back into this. It's just a standard IEC, so loads of them lying around. That beep again is the power supply coming on and the power supply tester taking up the load and saying yes, it's okay, it's working fine. So I've got this radio now connected up. As I said, there's going to be no sound because there is no speaker in this radio. As I may have mentioned, I did take the speaker out. And it's going to the dummy load and I can key the microphone and it works fine. On that power supply, as it's only 12 volts, this radio is measuring an output of around about 3 watts. 3 watts is fine. It's still within the legal limit for the citizens band. Okay. Yeah, and the radio is actually working, as you can probably hear. Turn that up a bit louder. Yeah, that's the radio working. So you don't have to be an amateur radio operator to use Anderson Powerpole connectors. They're equally as good in CB applications as well, or any 12 volt application where you need a connector that's not something you want to be swapping the red and the black over on. So anything really. They can be used in the car, in electronics workshops, anywhere. I can't remember the rating of those particular connectors. I think they're 15 amp rated, but someone can correct me if I'm wrong. But they do actually stop you blowing your radio up. I'd been meaning to swap to them for a while, and it was only after the incident with the Grant 2 in which I actually had to eventually use them. But the connector that's actually on the Grant 2 at the moment is not Anderson Powerpole. I haven't fitted them to it yet. The connector that's actually on that is a car cigarette lighter plug, and that's somewhat difficult to get reverse polarised as well. So the Grant 2 should be safe no matter what I connect it to. So that can connect to the jump starter still just by plugging it into that. My jump starter has 12 volt outlets on it, and I have a 12 volt outlet on my bench power supply in the shack as well, for that reason. So the rest of my radios will be getting Anderson Powerpole connectors on them. My Tune 70 set in the shack, that's already got them fitted. I think the other Tune 70 set that I've got in there, the VV898, which I'm hoping to use as an APRS iGate radio once I can import the hardware from, as it turns out, the United States, and get a Raspberry Pi and obviously some solar panels and batteries to run it, because I want to put it out in the shed. Then, as far as I'm aware, I've already fitted power poles to that as well for that purpose, and obviously, so I don't want to connect things backwards. If I haven't, I'll probably get them done at some point. I'm just trying to think. The only CB I own now that doesn't have anything on it other than this Midland one is my Moonraker FA5000, which is not one I use a lot anyway. But that power lead fits something else I own as well, which I think is a Belcom scanner, which actually has a Uniden power connector on it. So the power lead from the Moonraker FA5000 will actually fit that. So it might be wise to put some power poles on that anyway, just so I don't damage quite an old piece of equipment. But I don't use that scanner anyway. It just sits on my on top of my realistic scanner at the moment. So I'm not going to go over how to fit them because there's videos on how to do that on YouTube. So I don't need to go into too much depth on how to fit them. It's just the idea that putting them onto the power cord of your radio gear will in fact stop you having any incidents where you might connect the radio backwards, because not all radios will have a protection diode in them. Some of the really cheap ones probably don't. I'm not sure about the TCB 550 because although I've had a look inside it, obviously to remove the speaker, I've not paid any attention to where the power goes in. I've not had a look inside that Midland at all as far as I'm aware. I don't think I've ever opened it. I have looked inside my Moonraker FA5000, but I didn't see a diode in there near the power connector. So then, if I plug that in backwards, I might destroy it. So my hopeful aim is to hopefully get these wires on here to about an equal length, because the positive's longer than the negative, which is historic because of that being used in my first car, which was a Peugeot 106, and that black wire did go to I think it was a point on the chassis, and the red would have gone to the fuse box. Although having said that, those 2 points were in pretty close proximity. I've just had to unbolt it and rebolt it. So there was that. That's probably the legacy of that. There's a legacy of the 106 as well on the power cord for my SS9900, because that went in that car as soon as I was licensed, but I never actually cut the antenna down, which is why that antenna was subsequently suitable for the homemade base station CB antenna that myself and my wife created, that we had in the air when she was here, so I could use the CB in the car to talk to her rather than use my very limited data at the time on Skype calls, because she always liked to call me on Skype, but because the CB was next to the bed and turned on, all I had to do was pick up the microphone and give her a shout. It was quite good. And that's why that power supply has been modified with Anderson Powerpole connectors. And so that the Team Roadcom, which was used as the radio in the bedroom, which is still there right to this day, was able to be connected straight into that and not damaged. I bought that Team Roadcom for another project, but we'll go over that later. So, Anderson Powerpole connectors. Very good idea. Saves your radio equipment from being damaged. There's the ones on the SS9900. I've got a lead in the car that has these on the end, which plugs into the cigarette lighter socket, so all I've got to do is connect them together. And that way, anything that's connected to the other end just connects to the cigarette lighter socket. Quite good. And what I'm planning on doing with the car is running a feed from the battery, because I've already got a feed running off the battery for the Yaesu FTM 400. And run another feed from the battery with suitably heavily rated cable into a fuse box, and bring out some power pole connectors on that. So that way I can just connect stuff straight into the battery. It'll be permanently live because I don't plan to disconnect it via relay. I may fit switches into that, but we'll see. I'll see what I can get from an auto parts supplier. probably Halfords. Yeah, so I can have some Anderson Powerpole connectors actually in the car connected to the battery. I'm debating whether I modify the FTM 400 power lead to Anderson Powerpole, but at the moment it does actually have a polarised connector on it, and it's all hardwired, and I'm not really planning to change that anytime soon. So you don't have to, like I say, you don't have to be a licensed amateur radio operator to use Anderson Powerpole connectors. You can be a CBer as well if you've got sufficient knowledge to fit them. Just go on YouTube and have a look at you'll find the instructions to fit them. If not, ask someone who knows how to do it, or you could ask a licensed amateur radio operator. The crimping tool for those terminals is actually quite expensive, so if you're only doing a small handful of connectors, you can actually solder them. So if you know how to solder, then you're already good to go. I think SOTABeams might have instructions on how to fit those, but there probably is other instructions as well. There should be information on Wikipedia about the Anderson Powerpole connector as well. I'll see if I can dig that out and put a link to it in the video description. So don't do what I did and accidentally connect your radio backwards, because that's just not going to work. Fit it with any polarised connector, but an Anderson Powerpole connector would be my first choice here. Use those, and then you can plug your radio in, safe in the knowledge that you've connected it the right way round, depending on if the load on the other end is connected correctly, which it should be in the vast majority of cases. Although in my last video, obviously about what I hope to be made law regarding CBs in cars, I didn't specify connection using Anderson Powerpole connectors, and the reason why I didn't specify that is because that would have just added complications. I only specified a direct run to the battery or the cigarette lighter socket, because those are the general two ways that most CB radios are installed. So protect your gear, even if it's cheap. This radio is not exactly that expensive. This TTI TCB 550. This was quite a cheap radio, and it's one of the reasons why I bought it, actually, for the purpose I was going to use it for, which was actually a 27 megahertz, 11 meters CB gateway to the free radio network. I obviously ceased doing that because I've since got my amateur radio license and don't really want to risk anything, if you know what I mean, because I'm not sure what the regulations are regarding actually linking the Citizens band to the internet. But having said that, what I've wanted to propose, that cars have these fitted as standard, as mandatory equipment, then gateways might not be acceptable, but then again they might help extend the range, but it might cause band and channel congestion, which is not what I want. So I'm just going off on one there now. I always have a bit of a ramble in my videos. It's kind of how I am. So if you got your CB and it just comes with bare wires like this, for instance, then some of them come with a ring terminal on one side, some of them don't. Just be aware that you pay attention to how you're connecting them, unless you actually fit some sort of connector. The good thing about the Anderson Powerpole connectors is, like I said, they can only fit in one way round. You can't force them the other way. If you do, you're just going to break something. Another piece of kit that could be of some use to you is the SOTABeams Fuser 6. I'll explain what that does. It uses the Anderson Powerpole connectors and also lets you know if you've connected your batteries the right way round or not. So, and it uses standard automotive fuses. So if a fuse blows or you need to change the value for whatever reason, then that's the way to do it. And it can be mounted or something else. So that will also help protect your equipment, and if you've got a beefy enough power supply, you can run quite a fair few things off it. So Anderson Powerpole connectors. Useful, safe, reliable. If you go onto Google and have a search for Anderson Powerpole connector, you should find them somewhere would supply them for you. I got mine from SOTABeams, but other good providers of these connectors are actually available. So you can be amateur, CB operator, even a shortwave listener, because you may have a scanner that operates off 12 volt. So you want to protect your radio from being connected backwards. Best thing to do is put a polarized connector on it. And again, I recommend the Anderson Powerpole. It's served me well so far, and I've not had a single mishap with it. I mean, I've had issue with other connections, but not really any with the Anderson Powerpole. They've done well. So I think this topic is about covered. So hang on. A slight discrepancy between my clock there. I'm just checking to make sure that my time is right, because it says 2 minutes past 3 on my... There we go. It's 2 minutes past 3 on those, but it says 10 past 3 on my camcorder for some reason. Don't know why. That's alright. Because I've got work in 2 hours. I need to make sure that everything's all good and I can get everything sorted out before then. This might be processing while I'm at work at 5 PM today, which is the 14th of January. And yeah, so I nearly ended up starting this video on a bit of a downer, but I'll probably not cover that, because that's something that doesn't really relate to radio at all, although it could have related had CB been made mandatory last year. So, well, maybe, perhaps, I don't know. So, anyway, the video is actually about the Anderson Powerpole connectors. As supplied from SOTABeams, in a little bag, there you get you get an equal amount of red ones, an equal amount of black ones, and an equal amount of the terminals. I'll just disconnect this again from the power supply. There we go. So, and if you look from the back, I'm just trying to get that into shot. That's how they go on, and that's the connector there. That's that. So these connectors, these Anderson Powerpole connectors, will connect to other Anderson Powerpole connectors. So you can connect it through to another power lead that's going into another device, and well, it wouldn't really do any harm. As long as the voltage is what meets your radio's requirements, then you're fine. Most CB radios and amateur radio gear operates at about 13.8 volts, or well, it'll operate happily at 12, but 13.8 is usually what they specify. Although, having said that, car alternators run up to 14.2, or at least mine does anyway. So don't risk damage to your equipment. Get Anderson Powerpole connectors. It's probably a bit of a ranty video, because you know I did almost break my President Grant 2, which was a very expensive CB radio, and to be honest, you know, speaking of President Grant 2, I have a $50 bill from the United States of America on my table at this moment in time, and it looks like it has a picture of the president whose name is used for the President Grant 2 and its predecessor. There was a President Grant, which actually wasn't strictly legal in this country. The Grant 2 is. Yeah, that was just a bit of a tedious link, we shall say. What was on here? Yeah, it's still there. Yeah, I'm not going to explain how I got that. It was a Christmas gift from someone in America. A relative of my significant other. Because, as you probably know, my significant other is American. Which is actually where CB originally came from, is America. So a lot of tedious links to America there. Although, having said that, we have our own set of frequencies here. But we still have the equivalent of the American ones. But actually, we do have we do have compatibility with the American frequencies, because we are actually allowed AM on those frequencies now. We have been for a good few years. Anyway, I think that's enough tedious links. And then there's obviously the subject of the video, which is the Anderson Powerpole connectors. As long as you fit them right, you're not going to risk blowing your equipment up. Something else I do, and I've always done this since starting to put these on, is I put a cable tie just above the connectors. That stops these wires from going very far. The rest, I might cable tie the rest of that wire, those wires together as well, but at the moment it should be fine as it is, as long as it plugs into what it needs to plug into. So, and it's a cheap radio, but still I'd rather not risk blowing it to pieces. So, this is Paul, Mike 0 Whiskey November uniform, or 26 Charlie Tango 730 if you catch me on 11 metres and 11 metres CB, and of course PMR 446. I haven't actually done a lot of work on PMR 446 because my only working PMR 446 radio, my Intec MT5050, has dead batteries right now, and my only other radio doesn't go on those frequencies. It aren't strictly allowed to go on those frequencies. So, yeah, it's all my Chinese radios. So I'm hoping to get some more videos up in the coming weeks, more radio videos. And with that, I wish you 7-3. Or, if you like your CB lingo, 10-4, good buddy. This is the microphone for the radio. I actually removed it from the computer just to test this radio and use it in the thumbnail for the last video. So, anyway, I'm off until the next one. 7-3 for now.
Don't forget, you can subscribe to this channel and ring the bell to be notified of new videos as I upload them. 73 is from Paul, Mike 0 Whiskey November uniform, or 26 Charlie Tango 730 on 11 metres and PMR 446.